What's going on, everybody? I'm Johnny Brook from Crafted Workshop. Welcome back to episode number 46 of the Crafted Podcast here on September 13th, 2007. We're a podcast that's all about making stuff by hand, woodworking, metalworking, leather, electronics, and more. We put out new episodes every Thursday on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, pretty much everywhere podcasts are available. Also, we are changing our live streaming time. We have been doing it on Wednesday night here for a little bit, but we're going to change it to Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern time. So hopefully some of you guys can make it. I know a lot of people listen to talk radio and that kind of thing while they're at work, so hopefully that'll work for some of you guys. So we'll still put out the shows on Thursday, but we will be changing the live streaming time to 10 a.m. Eastern time, and we will be still live streaming on our YouTube channel. So just search for Crafted Podcast on YouTube, and we'll come right up. If you really like the show, go ahead and rate it on iTunes. A 5-star rating would be super appreciated. That really helps us out. And we are also on Patreon. We are slowly creeping up on that $250 goal for the weekend show. And our top patrons of the week are Make, Build, Modify, Master of None, and Debbie Brooke. Let me introduce my co-hosts as always. I've got James Wright from Wood by Wright. What's going on, James?
Oh, I'm doing fine today. Thank you for having me. This is a pleasure to be here. I'm just as happy as a clam in a shell.
Wow. All right. That's a new one.
I like it. I like it.
And I've got Zach Overholtz from ZH Fabrications. What's going on, Zach?
Hey, that was great, man.
How many people just spewed their coffee across their desk?
Yeah,
fantastic change of pace there. I like it.
Yeah, from the smooth, smooth jazz NPR hour voice to now I don't even know what that was. Hillbilly.
Sound like a NASCAR driver.
Yeah, or like an auctioneer. Like
Wood
a
by
southern
Wright
auctioneer. Yeah, that's pretty good. Nice. Well, let's talk about what we've been working on. James, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I've been working on my French cleat wall, which is. It should be a very simple project, but it is one that I've been dragging out now for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
If it was a power tool shop, it would have, it's like a 20-minute project, but I'm trying to document doing it several different ways. And so each way requires a little bit more playing around with it and actually trying to find out how to do it. And because I think that's one of the interesting things that we do is we try to make the mistakes and then show people the way we found the best way to do it, as opposed to just, stumbling in the shop and attacking it.
Definitely.
Although sometimes that's how I do it. So,
so what method is working best for you so far?
I have a little jack that I made that sits on the saw bench to hold the piece of work at about a 20-degree angle, and that makes it so that the work is basically held in place, and I can use it just like I would a flat piece, but rather than it being flat on top of the saw bench, it's just held up at a 20-degree angle for cutting the long angle down the strip.
Nice.
So it's going fairly well.
Yeah. When do you think you'll be done with it?
I probably have about another 40-50 minutes worth of actual cutting, and then it's the finish work and hanging it all up.
Yeah, did you figure out where you're hanging it with? Because I know regular old screws would be a bit of a pain.
Yeah, I'm going to be doing regular old screws, just pre-drilling everything and driving in.
Man.
Now, actually, with a brace and bit, they go pretty darn quickly.
Yeah, just driving them by hand would be.
Yeah, the screwdriver is your wrist just dies.
Yeah, that would be intense. Nice, cool. What else you been working on?
Well, I've also been running some more and running more than that. As I did my marathon last week, and then Friday this week I did a 10K. Saturday I did a 25K, and then Sunday I was going to go do a 50K, but ended up blowing out my ankle and had to DNF the race. So I wasn't quite as happy as I wanted to be, but still a lot of miles.
Yeah, man,
it's
way
too many miles.
All through the trails and hills. It's a lot of fun.
It's funny. I've actually kind of started trying to get into a little bit of trail running myself, and been trying to do that couch to 10K program.
To see the trees and all.
I actually went for a run today too, which is something I never do. But I've been in Chattanooga, and drinking way too much and eating like so much barbecue, and I just feel disgusting. So like today I'm like, I have to go out and do something. So
Nice. That's
yeah.
funny. That's funny. Cool. Well, I guess Zach, you haven't really probably been working on much, right? Considering
No,
you've been
it
out of
was
town.
man, it's been I do say this every week, but like it just keeps on getting crazier. Like, so I'm sure anybody listening is familiar with Hurricane Irma, and that was it's crazy. Like, so it was originally supposed to go up the Atlantic coast, so no big deal. And then the models kept shifting it west, and we kept watching it, and it was set to go up the middle of the state, and I'm pretty stubborn, so I was like, no big deal. But my wife was like, okay, we need to figure this out because it's a Cat 5 and it's just wrecking everything. So the next morning it kept going west, and we're like, we probably should get out. So we got in our cars and headed north to some friends in Chattanooga. And it was like the most terrifying experience of my life. There was no gas in the state. Like there's people camped out at gas stations hoping that like a tanker will come and fill it up. There was a period that was, it was gridlocked almost all the way out of the state, but there was a period where it took us 3 hours to get 6 miles, and there's cars pushed off to the side of the road, like abandoned, and people are walking because they ran out of gas. It felt like a movie. It was surreal. And then like trying to it was in those 6 miles where we had a half a tank of gas, and we had been driving for probably 7 hours, and we'd gotten about 100 and maybe 180 miles, and wondering like, God, if this gridlock keeps up and there's no gas in the state, like we're not going to make it. We're not going to make it out. So like having to make that decision in my head, like, are we best to keep driving north, or we have a half a tank? Do we drive back to our house and try and ride it out there? So it was incredible. One of the most stressful, probably the most stressful and terrifying experience of my life. But fortunately, we got out, and we called some friends in Tallahassee earlier, and we said, go fill up everything you have with gas. And he had pretty much a tank sitting aside for us when we got there. And fortunately, the hurricane curved last minute and did absolutely nothing. So we got lucky there, but it was still a crazy experience. So we're still up in Chattanooga. It's actually turned out to be a great vacation. They're good friends, so it almost feels like we're at home. It's given me a chance to catch up on some of my modeling that I've had to do, my 3D models, and reaching out to clients and stuff. So it's been a good experience, and there's great beer and excellent food, and it's a really cool city for how small it is. I'm blown away. Like you drive through Chattanooga. Man. I know it's weird. Like if you just drive through it, you'd be like, wow, this place is a dump. Like it just doesn't look cool at all. And then you go into because all the buildings are like old brick, worn down, like, which is cool, but they don't look like they've been gone through yet. So, but there's so many, like all the bars and stuff are incredibly nice, and like the food is amazing. It's just, it's like a hidden gem. It's a really cool city. So.
Yeah, we used to go there every summer growing up because it's only about 2 hours from Atlanta, so it's like a really easy little weekend trip, when you've got like kids and stuff. So we would go up and tour the Mayfield milk plant there and get our free scoop of ice cream. And and then I've gone back several times as an adult, and they've got this really burgeoning little kind of beer and liquor scene. Like there's a Chattanooga whiskey company that's actually really good. It's a cool spot for sure.
Yeah, it's been fun.
A lot of good lumber as opposed to palm trees.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no sand that I know of. So
I was thinking, man, I could totally live here. Like it's a really cool place. And then they were talking about how the summers are brutal and hot and humid, and I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
okay, well that's out. We're
It's
not
the
gonna
Southeast,
consider
man.
this anymore.
It's
So other than
kinda
that,
hard to
it's
avoid.
awesome. But
Nice.
yeah.
Cool.
So that's what I've been up to. Heading back Friday, I think is the plan. So we have one more day. There's actually one of my YouTube, Instagram followers is we're gonna meet up for dinner tomorrow because he lives out here. So
Nice.
so yeah.
Cool. Well, I've been working on this concrete and steel end table and pretty much got it done. Got the base welded up today, just used standard 1/2-inch rebar. So that was kind of interesting. Had never worked with rebar in that way before. And it was actually really easy. And I think it's a great way. I think going to a steel yard as somebody who's never been to a steel yard can be kind of intimidating. So I think that's a kind of a good potential option. Although I did kind of run into an issue. I was trying to just weld it on the 110 outlet with the Lincoln Electric, the Power MIG, and it wasn't quite powerful enough on 110. I was getting a lot of kind of sputtering and wasn't getting a ton of great penetration. So my 220 outlet for the welder is kind of on the other side of the shop, and so I have to use it basically outside, or else I'm right next to my table saw and it's all awkward, and it was pouring rain because of the hurricane. Anyway, so today it was a beautiful day, so welded outside and worked beautifully on 220 or 240 or whatever. And so got it welded up, got it all ground down nice and smooth, and then painted it. So that's looking good. And then the concrete turned out great. I'm amazed at how really simple that was. Built the form and used silicone caulk to kind of create the beveled edges. And then, just mixed up the concrete, poured it in there, vibrated it with a reciprocating saw with no blade on it. And the top is extremely, extremely smooth. So
Nice.
Really happy with the way that's looked. And then just kind of sanded it a little bit with regular old sandpaper, and then added some
aggregate in there, or did you strain it out?
No, I just used straight up Quikrete 5000. It's like the Pro Finish one. So just straight out of the bag. I did nothing to it. So I did add a little coloring,
just artisanal distilled water.
I actually, funny enough, did use distilled water because I just had a gallon jug of it sitting there. I'm like, man, it's put in 3/4 of a gallon. I'm like, well, I've got a gallon jug here, so that's going to make it a lot easier to figure that out. But
I've heard Fiji water is the best for concrete.
Yeah, you got to distill it yourself. That's the key. That's how you can business expense a still is for the concrete work. But anyway, so it was really pretty simple, although I mixed up so much concrete. I mixed up an entire 80-pound bag, and this little end table top is 14 inches wide and 2.5 inches thick. So I have this huge tub of basically dried up concrete that I don't know what to do with. It's I got to take a sledgehammer to it and dump it in the I don't know, somewhere. But anyway, so happy with the way that's coming along. It's been I haven't welded in a long time, and I've never done concrete, so it was good to kind of get back to it. Really kind of trying to get my metal side of the shop more dialed in. Got the welding table video done and the welding table built finally. And man, having a metal welding table, it's pretty nice, I must say. It's a bit of a game changer. So I'm getting a cart from ZT Fab. They make carts that basically can hold multiple welders or plasma cutters. So right now I have 3 separate welding carts, one for the Power MIG 210, one for the Square Wave 200 TIG welder, and then one for the Tomahawk 375 plasma cutter. So the footprint of those 3 carts is ridiculous. So I'm getting a cart from ZT Fab that will hold all 3 of those machines in one vertical cart and 2 tanks. So one 100% argon or whatever for TIG, and then CO2 argon mix for MIG, and it'll hold some TIG rods. So it's going to be sweet. I'm pretty pumped on that. So
looking forward to seeing that. That's a cool
yeah
shop picture.
That's
Yeah,
actually on my build list, is to build a cart for my TIG and MIG, just combined unit.
yeah,
So
they
I could get one, but I feel like I have some ideas that I haven't seen anybody else do. That I
yeah. I
kind of
mean,
want
it
to
gives you a good
implement. So
excuse to get like a bender and stuff like that too. I mean, it's you know, ZT Fab. I don't know if you've seen their stuff, but like April Wilkerson built one of their carts a while ago. They're really, really nice, like all CNC cut, and you know, really, they're cool looking. I'm actually considering trying to practice my TIG welding on the cart just because it's such a nice looking cart that I would love to get some sexy TIG welds on there. So we'll see if I actually do that or just be lazy and do it with MIG. But yeah, anyway, so that's about it for me. Just been I haven't done any woodworking in like 2 weeks. It's really weird. It's
I was like on a roll, man. Like I'd put out video after video after video, like 2 or 3 weeks straight, and I was all on track to put out that like blacksmithing coat rack thing that I did, the forged coat rack. And then like all I had left is I ordered a keyhole bit for my router, and it just showed up the day before we left, and I just needed to. All I have left to do is like route the keyholes, put it on the wall, and take a picture. I already have the video edited and everything, and yeah, it just didn't happen. We didn't have time, so there's going to be a week hang up on that. So, but I have this. So today I finally got a chance because I've been wanting to do a like a shop stool for a while.
yeah.
And I wanted to do something different, and I came up with one today, and you guys saw it. But it requires turning a is it 12, either 11 or 12-inch diameter cone out of wood, and I don't know how I'm going to do that yet. So it's like, but then it occurred to me a little bit later. I'm like, Johnny has a really nice lathe.
I was gonna say, yeah.
We haven't done a collab for a while.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Come on up,
Swing
man.
back by Johnny's place.
Yeah,
And
Chattanooga is
you're gonna
right
make
around the
me come
corner.
over. You're gonna make me come up and do it.
Oh, you want me to turn it for you? I see what you're.
Maybe
doing.
I don't know.
You want me to do the hard part?
I'm still just. It's just a cone. It shouldn't be that hard, right?
Well, so what would be tricky with that design is the hole placement. So the way you have the legs going through the cone, you'd have to
I could do that. I could do all of that.
Okay, yeah, because it'd probably be easiest to do that before turning it while it's still square, and then turn it.
That would be easier, but I could do it. I could do it another way.
Yeah, dude, I haven't even turned on that big behemoth lathe in a while. That might actually be kind of a fun project. Although, dude, the size of the piece of wood you'd need would be ridiculous.
I know. I thought about that too, and I was like, it'd have to be a glue up, and I'm like, God, I really want to do walnut, but that would be a bunch of walnut. Like, so it's only 10 inches long.
Yeah,
but I think the diameter is like 11 or 12.
I mean, it wouldn't be that bad. It would be like less than one board. You know, I mean, I've probably got enough walnut. I mean, I know I have enough walnuts sitting around to do that. We'll see. So I'm building that bar table for a client like next week, and I'm going to be using a ton of walnut for it. I'm building a bar table and 2 matching kind of bar height benches. And so whatever walnut I have left over,
yeah,
like
if you get
scraps, I think I might be able to glue up a block like that.
Johnny, Zach, all you can do is right now with all the windstorms that are going through that area, just go around and look for a tree that's fallen down and hack out a log.
Yeah. Well, I've got a red oak log sitting in my backyard. I could
nobody likes
you
red
off
oak.
I know. Of course, like all the trees that fall in my yard and smash my car to bits had to be freaking red oak. I'm like,
you know what you should do?
My least favorite wood.
You know what you should do with that? What kind of car did it fall on?
My Kia Soul.
You should carve out a Kia Soul out of that log.
Get into carving, James style.
Just for that one thing. It's like the ultimate retribution.
Find a 3D CAD file of it and do it on the CNC.
Yeah, that would be pretty good. That would be pretty good.
And then you could, that'd be awesome. But yeah, so that's what I was thinking. I'm still waiting to hear back. I've been talking to Rockler, but I don't think they have a lathe that is capable of turning something of that diameter. I don't think their Rockler lathe is. So
the
I don't know.
Excelsior will do, I think, 10 inches. So, which, I mean, it depends how big. It seems like, I don't know what that cone is. It seems to be just aesthetic. So, you know what I mean? It seems like you could
I
attach
could
it.
build it without it, but I won't. I mean, that's. I mean, I have another model that looks good without it, but I really think aesthetically it's kind of a cool, and I think it would look really good in person too. I think.
Yeah.
So I mean, everything I design in 3D models, I think I'm like, oh, that looks pretty cool, and then when I build it, I'm like, that's so much better than it looked in the model.
Yeah.
No, it would be cool.
And I want it to be different, like if I took it out, I could make it just look like every other kind of neat bar stool, but it wouldn't be like unique, that's like I said, I've said it before, but that's like my goal with everything I build. I want you to like, anybody should walk by it and notice it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that'd be cool. I mean, dude, honestly, like that cone wouldn't probably take more than an hour to turn. So
I know. I just need the tool to do it. I need to scour like the Tampa Craigslist area and see if there's something. Because I just don't want to spend
put a lathe though, dude? That's what. Like,
I'll make room.
You said you didn't have room for a nicer welding table. I'm like, bro, you weld every week. Like turning is one of those things. Like you think, unless you get really heavy down that rabbit hole,
or if you're in chairs,
yeah, it just collects dust. I mean, to be quite honest with you,
well,
yeah.
You're asking the guy who just designed an object that he doesn't have the tool to make. Like you think I am planning on where I'm going to put that thing yet? Like
if you really want to, you could build a spring pole lathe in a day or two.
You good, dude? You should see if Tampa has any maker spaces or like tool library type things, and just go do it there. I mean,
that would blow my mind if Tampa had anything.
I guarantee you, dude. Tampa's a big city, man. Tampa is a big city. You I think would be fine. Asheville has a maker space, and we are a city of 80,000 people. So Tampa's bigger than that.
But this is Florida. Like I've never seen anybody mow their own yard where I live.
Yeah, I think you could find it.
Check this out. Here's an example. So like they had sandbag stations before the hurricane. There were lines that were 2-3 miles long. People were waiting 3 to 4 hours for people, because there's a line for people that are getting bags filled. Like they fill it and put it in your truck. And then there's a pile of dirt and bags that you can do yourself. No line at all. There's like 5 people there. Like people were waiting about 3+ hours to have somebody else put sand in a bag for them, when there's like a do-it-yourself station with no line, and there was only like 6 or 7 people there. Tracy and I went there and we filled 25 bags in like maybe 10-15 minutes, and we were out of there.
Yeah,
it blew my mind. I'm like, these people really won't.
There's definitely some woodworkers in the Tampa area, and there's a Woodcraft there, and Patrick's workshop just said Dreadnought Workshop is in that area. So I think I think you can figure it out.
I think so. I bet I could find somebody. There's probably somebody that follows my YouTube or Instagram that
would be a fun collab for you, Dreadnought Workshop.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with Dreadnought Workshop.
Yeah, he's good stuff for sure. He was in Atlanta last at the Atlanta Woodworking Show.
Okay.
Cool. Well, let's talk about the show topic. So we don't I don't think we have a super clear idea, but it's basically, we got a question from Ryan Wall through email, and he was asking us about what some 3D modeling and CAD programs, and basically asking about the differences and pros and cons of SketchUp versus Fusion 360, that kind of thing, and CNC machines, that kind of thing. And so I was just thinking it might be an interesting conversation to talk about digital fabrication and digital manufacturing in general, and kind of how we see that, impacting our, hobby and our businesses and what place those kind of techniques have. I think it could be kind of interesting. So I know, I guess I'm the only one in the group who has a CNC, but I'm sure you guys have some opinions about it, but I thought that might be kind of interesting. So James, as the resident hand tool guy, what do you think about 3D printing and CNCs and that kind of thing?
I love it, especially if you're ever doing it for, money. If you're making things to sell, I mean, that's a no-brainer to be able to throw something on there and walk away and doubling your time, especially if it's something you're doing a lot of.
Yeah. Yeah, I think to me, obviously, CNC routers have the most kind of applicable skills based on what we're doing, being able to either create parts very easily or, one thing I've been thinking about using my CNC for would be to create like bent lamination forms, because those are kind of a pain to create. You have to usually make multiple layers of the exact same piece. And usually that means a lot of template routing, that kind of thing. Whereas you could just drop a piece of plywood or MDF on the CNC and, route out the same shape over and over again. So that's one definite use case. But, as far as becoming a profitable production shop, there's so much stuff you can do, signs and that kind of thing that the CNC is incredibly useful. And the same goes for if you're on the metal side, having a CNC plasma cutter, it's an incredibly useful tool. But I think for me, I've always felt 3D printing was kind of gimmicky until more recently, where I've really started to kind of see it becoming more applicable to a lot of different things. And one of those is like metal casting. I've seen some really cool stuff with people using 3D printers to create the model out of plastic and then create the kind of aluminum casting mold out of that. And that's been some really interesting kind of techniques. And I feel like the barrier to entry for a lot of these tools is becoming so much lower because of maker spaces and libraries and places like that, the whole, well, I don't have a CNC or a 3D printer excuse is becoming less relevant.
Yeah. And they're really, most of them are coming down to the price of a decent table saw.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of insane really how compared to, even 5 years ago, it's, the X-Carve or the Shapeoko, while they're certainly not the caliber of something, like an Axiom or some other larger, higher end kind of all-in machine, for a hobbyist, they're outstanding. Great way to kind of get into CNC work. And honestly, on the wood side, you generally don't need as much precision as you might, especially on like the metal side. I mean, wood is to me a lot more forgiving. Yeah. A 32nd of an inch is not as big of a deal.
Well, if you ever seen Bearcat Wood, he did his legs for his bench on the CNC. And he has a fourth axis, which is basically like a lathe underneath the mill. Fourth axis or fifth axis? It's
fourth axis.
Well, no, I think it's fifth axis because his head also turns.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he can do some cool things on his.
Man,
at least
he could do like ball and claw foot with his CNC. That would be crazy.
Yeah, but once you start doing that, I mean, you're basically being able to do, 3D printing with wood.
Yeah,
and you can get some really, really cool things with that. I mean, to the point where you just, it doesn't take much more than a 100 grit sandpaper to a finish, and then you're done.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I think I've seen a lot of woodworking type of people, I feel like, become intimidated by the idea as if CNCs or 3D printers are going to replace us, but I don't really see that happening. I think for some things it might happen. Like I've seen, if you've been to any big woodworking trade show, the robots that basically pick up a sheet of plywood and on the other end of the line pops out a fully finished cabinet. Like that's that would be scary as a cabinetry shop or something like that. But the type of stuff we do, it would be very difficult, I think, to really, I mean, obviously James, impossible to replicate what you're doing with a CNC, but I think, I think there will always be a place for that kind of handmade product.
Mhm.
And I almost think of, digital manufacturing as an apprentice. It's replacing what 100 years ago would have been somebody else doing this kind of menial work for you.
That was the big drive during like just before World War II into just after World War II, was all the power tools suddenly coming out were billed as it replaces an apprentice.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
that's not just replacing an apprentice. That's like getting another master.
Oh yeah. I mean, I cannot fathom the efficiency gain. The day that like table saws became readily available, that must have been just the most insane moment, because that is, it's just nuts. Like comparing that to ripping something by hand is just a massive, massive difference.
It's like electricity in the workshop is like indoor plumbing.
Yeah.
Like it's like the equivalent of.
Are you saying I'm a
indoor plumbing.
caveman? I am.
Yeah, that's funny. Zach, what do you think about digital manufacturing? I've never really talked to you about it.
I don't know. Like, I'm not interested in it. It's not to say that I don't think it's like cool and has its place and stuff, but I feel like the reason I got into doing what I do is because I get to use my hands and I get to be out there and I'm connected to what I'm working on. Probably similar to James, although, I take a few shortcuts with some power tools, but I feel I enjoy the process of starting with raw material and using my hands to turn it into something that's in my head. And that's the fun for me, whereas not to say you don't do the same thing with digital or, it's just a different way of getting there. And I feel like it doesn't connect to me on the same level, like it's just, I guess it's just a different medium of creation. Yeah. And I feel like I would be inspired differently if I were doing it, behind a computer. So yeah. It's like a Zen thing for me. I don't know. I mean, I just love being out in the workshop and, doing stuff.
Yeah, there's also the aspect to anything automated that it becomes almost instantly perfect.
Yeah.
Whereas if I carve something, it will never be perfect. Whereas a CNC unit can carve it just as fast, if not faster, in one go. It will be perfect. And at first idea, that sounds fantastic. But if you hold up a digitally perfect item up to a hand-carved item that has a few minor flaws, those few minor flaws suddenly make the whole thing come to life.
Yeah,
and it's not something you can ever really know until you experience it, or until you are actually interested in the piece. Because if it's just something that you would have as a hotel tchotchke or whatnot, you would find on the road, that's not going to make that much of a difference to you. But if it's something that you're going to have in your own house, something you're regularly interacting with, it becomes very apparent very quickly.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And there's like one of the things that's really cool when we were here in Chattanooga, we went to this place called, I think it's called the Yellow Deli. And there's like this commune here and I think it's called the 12 Tribes Commune or something like this. And they do everything. Like they have a blacksmith, they have a bakery, they have this, and it's really cool. I mean, they're really good at what they do. And this restaurant that we went to, everything they made themselves, like all the stairs, all the, the benches are wood and they have like brass tacked leather around them. And it's like hide leather. So it's not like square and perfect. It's like you can see like the shape of the animal on the, and it's just, and like all the, not the railings, but in between it's all like knitted. They had a blacksmith that forged their shelves and their stands, and it's everything in there was handmade, everything. Like, and there's just something to that. Like, it's definitely not perfect. It's like organic. Like I said, the leather, like you can see the hand railings, like you can see where one starts and the other one stops, and kind of the silhouette of whatever animal it was. And I mean, that's just an example of, it's not perfect. It's not uniform. It's not, and it felt like my wife, Tracy, she said, I feel like I'm in the coolest tree house I've ever seen in my life. And but it like in an awesome way. It like felt like a fairy tale. It's just, but I feel like that's kind of the vibe that like when you walk into a place, even if you don't know the difference, even if you know nothing about construction or building, you don't know the difference between, you don't even know what a CNC is or whatever. If you walk into a place and everything is handmade, like, something is different. Like it just feels organic, and it has like a character and soul to it. And I'm not saying that that's better. It's just a different thing, and I like that. So
yeah.
And I feel also when you get into it, it's almost turns into a ends justifying the means issue with a lot of digital production, because it turns into production. And it's not because you can't be creative with it, but who uses that stuff mostly? Companies that want to crank out 1,000 of the same thing. So it's almost like that tool.
See, I disagree though. I mean, maybe mostly, but I think more and more
Absolutely,
people are using it, thinking outside the box. Because, as I said, things like cabinetry and, cutting squares out, there's no art form to that. There is no, you know what I mean? Like building a cabinet carcass, a monkey could do if you trained. You know what I mean? So there's no creativity to that. You're building to dimensions. You're building the same way every single time.
I agree. I'm saying that, like, I feel like they get, like, the digital, like, all that stuff gets more of a bad rap because usually you see it being used for mass production. And
exactly.
I feel like it kind of gets, like I said, it's the ends justifying the means. It's something that, like, the majority of the people that buy those things are probably companies that buy it in order to mass produce things. Although, I mean, it's just a tool, So that's not to say that there aren't individuals out there that can buy it and do some really unique custom stuff with it, which is fantastic. It's just unfortunate that most of what gets associated with that sort of production is production.
Yeah.
So,
but I think that's probably because the cost has been so prohibitive, So like in order to justify a machine like that, you got to really, you got to be making a lot of widgets, So I think that's what's interesting to me, is seeing the way people are kind of thinking outside the box. And, people like Frank Howarth and those kind of people who are just kind of pushing the CNC envelope and using a CNC where it wouldn't traditionally be used. And he's done some really cool kind of joinery techniques where it's basically, instead of like dovetails, it's like a squiggly kind of rounded looking thing. And it's just really interesting to me. That's where I think, custom furniture makers are going to start incorporating it more and more as the prices continue to go down, because, being able to add weird shapes and textures and things like that would be a royal pain and would take forever to do, especially if you need to do like 8 of them for, like, just think of a dresser, if you want all 8 drawers to have this really cool, like, continuous pattern across them, that would be very difficult traditionally. But with something like a CNC, it kind of unlocks some really interesting potential. So,
well, one thing I read a while ago, that there are several steps to woodworking or any working detail. Number one, there's the straight line. So cutting a straight line, ripping a board, or as a table saw can do that fantastically. Then the next step is cutting an inside corner. So how do you cut a corner in a board? Well, a table saw can't do that by itself. You need something that reciprocates, a jigsaw. Then the next step is multiple compound figures. In other words, a carved face, something that has a flow to it. And it was a long time until machines could duplicate that, until you got like Panta routers or things like that have started to get into it. And then you can get into undercuts and three-dimensional rounded shapes, which you get with multiple access, routers and such. But one area where they still haven't come back around to is a third straight face cut, where it is, rather than cutting an L out of a board, if you cut a mortise out of a board and have a flat surface and have a tight square corner in the bottom, there really isn't a great way of making that with a power tool.
No.
Yeah, that's one thing I'm looking forward to actually seeing how a tool can do that. That's the one last piece that power tools haven't been able to fully conquer.
Well, like a hollow chisel mortiser making a baby with a CNC would be pretty sweet.
Even like a hollow chisel mortiser, the problem is it doesn't give a flat bottom.
Yeah, exactly.
So you'd have to come at it from three different angles to get that to get that face.
Yeah.
But that's one of the few things where if you see a three-sided inside corner, it was made by hand.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's it excites me. It's something that I need to use my CNC more. I think size limitations are always the biggest thing to me. If I had an infinitely large CNC, I think it would probably get more use. But man, the footprint would be. My wife would have to park outside for sure. So. Well, so I guess let's talk about Ryan's question. I mean, you guys probably won't have a ton of input on this. Well, I guess you both use SketchUp, so you will. But so he's just wanting to know, SketchUp versus Fusion 360. They're both free. They're obviously very different tools, and kind of what are the pros and cons of each. So, for me personally, I use SketchUp quite a bit, a whole lot actually. And I think for woodworking, it's really effective. But that being said, I haven't kind of dove into Fusion enough to know how good it would be at the stuff that I'm currently doing in SketchUp. I think I would imagine it's actually probably better because it's a much more sophisticated program as far as just the way it kind of, what is it called? I'm trying to remember. Basically, any of the like thicknesses and things like that of materials can all be controlled in one kind of section of the program. So let's say you've built a desk out of 3/4 inch plywood and you decide you want to build it out of 1/2 inch plywood. You just change that number one place. It automatically adjusts everything else with the desk, all the pieces, all of their sizes to kind of fit that. So that's something that SketchUp certainly does not do. But SketchUp, I think, is maybe a little simpler to learn, but maybe not. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, in my background, my master's, part of that was learning Autodesk and CADWorks. So I had several classes in that for drafting and designing theater sets and houses and machinery, automation, that type of thing. And so I am very, very at home with several different high-end CAD machines, the ones you're paying thousands of dollars for a particular computer. And as much as I am comfortable with those, SketchUp is very, very intuitive. It's very easy for a layman to sit down and figure it out in an afternoon and be sketching. That being said, it has a lot of limitations. It is a sketching program. It is not a designing program. It's intuitive and easy to understand and great for the beginner who they want to draw something and see it, but not particularly to pull measurements and figuring out how is it going to fit together and work and mechanically function. Whereas Fusion 360 is really the first free 3D designing program that's come along that can do all those mechanical features. Yeah. And that's where it comes to life. If you want to build something and see how it works in reality, how it feels, what the functions of the pieces are, and so many more aspects to the actual things you put into it. Fusion 360 is great for that. It takes a little bit more to learn. Now, that being said, they've done a great job. It is very user-friendly and very easy to learn in comparison to a lot of the higher-end CAD programs. and you can do a lot more with it. So if you're willing to learn a little bit more, 360 is the way to go. It is fantastic. But if you just want to sketch something up and see it quickly, I still say SketchUp is the easiest way to do it.
Yep. Yeah, I think especially if you're going to be moving into CNC work, then Fusion is definitely the way to go, because
you're pulling
SketchUp has no CAM functionalities whatsoever. Computer assisted manufacturing, like it cannot do any of that stuff.
Yeah.
So it definitely falls behind in that arena. So yeah, I mean, so Zach, I know you use SketchUp. Is it meeting all your needs?
Yeah, I mean, I learned AutoCAD when I went to engineering school and got pretty good with that. I feel like there's only a couple of things that I miss from it, but I use SketchUp, and I just find that it's so easy to get lost in the details that I like to make things really simple. Like, I don't like too many options. Like, I think it's really easy to do a ton of research and try and find the biggest, the best, the baddest, the whatever, whether it's your video editing program or it's your drafting program. I want the one with the fewest options that will do what I need it to do, because you can, I feel like, for me, at least for my personality, I can create way more problems when I have more options. Like, I'm not building furniture isn't typically that difficult of a task as far as drafting. We're not designing nuclear power plants. It's usually rectangles, squares, the occasional triangle. I don't use SketchUp to figure out my joinery. I figure that out beforehand. And so my process, I usually, for ideas and for designing, I draw it out in a book with a pen or a pencil, and I'll do like 10 or 20 revisions and be like, oh, what if I make this part bigger and this part smaller, or whatever, and get my proportions. And then I'll set my, once I'm ready for that, then I'll set my dimension box in SketchUp and just go build in there. And I feel like it's really simple. It's really intuitive. I mean, like I said earlier, you're working with shapes, and the joinery, I'll know that beforehand. I don't go through, I'm not going to draw a mortise and tenon on SketchUp. I'm just going to do rectangles and put them where they need to go, and I keep that in mind when I reference it for the build, and it works great. So I like SketchUp because it's simple.
Yep. Yeah, I think also the cut list plugin that I use on SketchUp is extremely valuable to me. So that's honestly probably the biggest reason I continue to use SketchUp, because I know, as far as like rendering is concerned, Fusion is 100 times better than SketchUp. It is amazing. Some of the 3D renders you can get, like, they look completely true to life. So, yeah, I think that's, it really just depends on what you want to do and the kind of program you're looking for. I think one other big thing is Fusion is cloud-based and SketchUp is not. So if you ever want to do any modeling on an airplane or anything like that, well, you're out of luck with Fusion. So that's something to consider. It's a totally cloud-based program, so you cannot use it offline as far as I know. So Sean in the live chat just asked, which plugin do I use for SketchUp for the cut list? Just called Cut List. So just look it up in the extensions warehouse on SketchUp. You'll see it. It's very quirky, but I do have a video on my channel about kind of how to work that plugin effectively, and it works pretty well. It's laying out parts on sheet goods and that kind of thing is very effective. So yeah. Cool. Well, I guess let's talk about what we've been. Actually, no, we have a joke of the week.
We do. Nice.
Yes. Diami Plotke from Modern Woodworkers Association, another great podcast you guys should check out. So he just sent this one over on Twitter. How do trees get on the internet? They log in.
Nice. That's good. I have not heard that one.
Yeah, me neither. So that was a pretty good one. So what have you guys been watching? James, see you got one here?
Yeah. I have just came across a channel called Pale Dog Tool Company, and he does he does a bunch of things, but recently he's been doing a bunch of tool restorations and really doing a bang up job on them. A really cool channel that I got into and binge watched. He only has like 12 or so videos out so far, but definitely worth checking out. He is, I want to say he's like a couple hundred subscribers. So I mean, if we get on there, we could swamp him. But his editing is fantastic. I mean, he is editing to the point I would be expecting him to have several million subscribers. He spends a ton of time. Great music, great slides. Just yeah, really cool channel. Definitely check him out. Pale Dog Tool Company.
Nice. Zach, you got one?
I have nothing that I've really been watching, but just some cool stuff I've been looking at. There's I think, is it sculpturer? Is that what you call people that do sculptures?
Sculptor?
Sculptor. Okay. I don't know what's wrong with me. But yeah, a guy named Philip Jackson, Philip with one L, like these super awesome, like the awesome, like super creepy sculptures that are just, I don't know. You just look at them. They're the most eerie. They're cool. Anyway, so that's check that out. Also, there's this kind of, I don't even know what you call it, like surrealist illustrations. I have no idea what this guy uses, but they're like kind of just weird dystopian art. His name is Simon Stollenhag. If it's like SIMONSTALENHAG.SE. There's just a ton of crazy, like weird dystopian art that this guy does. It's kind of like retro, like 80s, 90s retro futuristic stuff that's just kind of cool.
Nice.
So has really nothing to do with anything relevant, but that's the kind of stuff I've been checking out.
Nice. Well, we'll have links to that stuff in the show notes, in case you're wondering. That's on craftedpodcast.com. So mine is this channel Lignum. I've seen a couple of his videos pop up here recently, and this wooden lounger chair is the video, and it is insane. It's this huge, it's like a full-on lounge chair, as the name implies, but it's this huge bent lamination kind of frame. So when you sit in the chair, it kind of flexes with you, kind of similar to like that chair IKEA has that I think everybody has in their house that, is bent lamination, kind of, flexy and really very comfortable, almost like a rocking kind of thing. But it's just this massive bent lamination frame with all of these slats that he cut out on the CNC, and really, really cool look. And I'm very impressed. Very inspiring kind of video that makes me want to think more outside the box. So definitely check that one out. Very, very cool stuff there. So cool. Well, let's finish it off with favorite tool of the week. James?
The good old-fashioned countersink bit. I'm using it with the French cleats I'm hanging up on the wall. And I have a countersink bit that fits in my brace with the tapered square shank. And I've found 4 or 5 different ones over the years, but I have yet to find a place where you can actually just go buy them other than eBay if you can. And I don't know why. There's something I really enjoy about countersinking with a brace. It's almost like I'm thumbing my nose at the power tool world. Fun.
That's funny. Yeah, there is something just so satisfying about countersinking in general. It's like,
it's true.
Just having that perfectly countersunk hole.
Yeah.
Man, especially on metal. Especially on metal. And when you have the screw that fits perfectly into the countersunk hole, it's a good feeling. Oddly satisfying right there. Cool. Zach, you got one?
I do. I'm trying to remember what the I just have the Amazon link I posted, and I'm trying to remember what tool it was. Oh yeah, it's called a stream light. It's like a little pen light, but it doesn't suck like all the old pen lights used to suck. It's actually really good. So actually, I saw it when I was up at Jimmy's place like a month or so ago. I saw that he had one. I'm like, what is that thing? And I liked it, so I went home and bought one, and it's been great. It's just like it's just a little pen light, but it's bright and great.
Nice.
So
Is that the thing you see him holding his teeth all the time?
Maybe.
Yeah.
It's funny because I thought I was the only one. I don't know. I used to get like when flashlights first started knowing what they were doing, like, and they were small and bright. I thought I was the only one in the world that like wrapped electrical tape around the back of the flashlight to hold it with my teeth. And apparently I wasn't the first one who thought of that. So I was always like working underneath cars and stuff, and it's no fun to hold steel between your teeth.
No.
But the stream light's nice and small, so it's not really necessary on that.
Headlamp. That's all I'm going to say to that.
I'm not mining using a headlamp a lot lately.
Yeah, man, headlamps are awesome, man. Once you get into like camping and backpacking, that's like it's like one of those things. It's like you use it so many times outside of camping and backpacking once you own one, because like, you know, when you're under the sink trying to fix something, or you know, it is so incredibly useful. Or
I have two of them. I guess I just need to put them somewhere where I remember that I have them.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Nighttime trail running.
Yeah. I feel like my father-in-law has a headlamp on like 40% of his life. It's a fixture on his forehead all the time. So cool. Well, mine is the welding table, because man, it's a game changer for me. Just being able to clamp the ground to the table itself and not to the workpiece is kind of insane. So pretty stoked on that. I'm really wanting to get some clamps for it, because that's kind of the whole point of having all these holes in the top of the welding table, is to have, you know, specific clamps so you can clamp in the center of the table. So that's gonna, I think, make things even better. So that's my tool. So cool. Well, I think that's gonna do it for this week. So thank you to everybody for listening. Again, we are on Patreon. We've added that $250 goal for the weekend show, slowly creeping up on that. So top patrons of the week: Make, Build, Modify, Master None, and my mom, Debbie Brooke. So thank you to
Thanks,
all
Debbie.
of your support.
Thanks, everybody.
Yes. And again, if you like the show, leave us a rating on iTunes. It's super helpful. And also, I'm going to be in Indiana this weekend at Festival Connect. Up in Lebanon, Indiana. I'm actually doing a panel talk on like social media and woodworking at 10 a.m. there with Jeff Mack Designs and Tool Pig and Toolaholic, some huge Instagrammers, and I'll be repping the YouTubers. So that should be.
Can you tell him to hook me up with a domino?
Yeah, I'll put in a good word.
I know this guy.
Yeah, this guy. He's down
He
in
will
Florida.
never buy a domino, but if you send him one, he will use the crap out of it.
Yeah, I'll see what I can do. Yeah, so if anybody's in that area, come out and say, hey, I'll have a bunch of stickers with me. So cool. Well, until next week, thanks everybody, and happy building.
See ya.
We doing an after party or no?
I don't think so.
All right.
Bye.
Later.